You're listening to the AFTERBUZZ TV Network, now the largest new media platform on the web, and your #1 source for after-show entertainment.
Very good, Johnson.
From the AFTERBUZZ Studios in Los Angeles, California, presented by Maria Menounos and streaming live thanks to Akamai Technologies, this is AFTERBUZZ TV's Ray Donovan After Show. We'll break down tonight's episode and get you all the latest news and gossip. And now, another post-game wrap-up show for your favorite TV show. It's AFTERBUZZ TV's Ray Donovan After Show.
Hey there, Ray Donovan fans. How are you? Welcome to AFTERBUZZ TV. It's time for our after show for Season 2, Episode 1, Yo Soy Capitan. I'm Matt Lieberman, and joining me all season long, the fantastic panel is here. Issac Johnson is here.
Hello, everyone.
As is Koppel.
Oh, hey.
And Kennelia Stradwick.
Hey, what's up, everybody?
Oh, folks, I'm so excited to talk about this show. You know, like, it's been so long since it's been around. I know you guys were here last year, and you invited us to be on this panel. We're so grateful. Thank you. Yeah.
You're welcome.
And what a premiere it was. We've got so much story to talk about, especially after last year. You know, we had such an explosive finale. We had the revelation that Ray was part of the same abuse that had been plaguing Bunchy all this time, and getting to the root of his behavior. And based on this premiere, I think we're probably going to get even deeper into that this season. Before we get started, I just want to mention really quickly our founder, Maria Menounos, and her fantastic book, The Every Girl's Guide to Diet and Fitness, now available on Amazon and bookstores everywhere, tearing up the New York Times bestseller list. So if you want to pick that up, learn about how she lost 40 pounds and how she kept it off. There's lots of exercises and recipes in there. And of course, supporting her means you're supporting us. So thank you so much for your support. All right, folks. Well, I want to get started by talking about the Ray's dream sequence and Mick's vision. Because obviously, you know, there are two sort of counterpoints in this show, and I think that they speak to what we may be seeing a lot of this season. We open on Ray, where he was at the end of last season, on the beach, covered in blood, and then he's suddenly getting buried alive. He opens his eyes and he thinks he's in this grave, he's getting buried alive, and, you know, last season, he's just constantly managing stress and managing the problems of everyone around him while not really confronting his own demons. And I'm wondering what you guys took from this dream sequence, if anything.
Well, a couple of things. First of all, the end of last season, when he's on the beach and he's, passed out and has blood all over him, and it was like, is he dead? Do we know? But it turned out to be sort of a sort of lovely scene where his family comes and he's surrounded by those that his loved ones, and his sort of reunion of his family. It's a reuniting of his family, but very symbolic dream. He's constantly being buried alive by everything, by his own feelings, by everybody else's problems, like you just said. And then I also thought it was interesting because in Mickey's dream, he's sort of haunted by this image of this woman where she says, where I am, it's so cold. She was buried. So there's sort of a mirroring there.
There's an interesting connection there.
Yeah, I honestly think Ray is the type of person, we've never seen him afloat. Like, we've never seen him not essentially be buried. I'm more interested in finding out, can he even thrive in a normal lifestyle or in a normal situation? Yeah. Can he even survive without things going haywire? Because, we see the issues with his family. We see the issues at work. We see that now he's dealing with Ezra and the things that are going with him. He always has to be involved. So when I saw the buried alive thing, yes, it kind of took him by surprise, but is that comfort for him? Like, is that okay for him to always be in this state of drowning or being buried or emotionally dying?
Yeah, I wondered about that. I wondered if maybe now that he's sort of, maybe not fully come clean with Abby, but he's got a lot of things a little more out in the open than they were last season. Maybe by like the therapy or something like that, he's starting to feel kind of buried by that stuff, perhaps.
Well, I think Kennelia makes a really, really good point, which is that obviously we've never seen him doing well, but this adrenaline and having to deal with all these other people and having to manage all these other lives allows him to escape having to deal with his own stuff, having to think about it, being able to further bury all of that aggression towards Father Danny, all the hatred towards himself, the hatred towards his father. It's a lot easier to just deal with other people and constantly be on that adrenaline high than actually realize, hey, I'm a really repressed guy with a lot of anger, and I'm just acting out instead of dealing with it. And I think, honestly, his situation's only going to get worse this year. He thought that he kind of got out from under it. You know, he finally had this moment with his father where he really got to say what he wanted to say, where he got to tell him, you let me down in an epic way, and it is the reason why I am who I am, and I can't forgive you for it. And yet, even now, even after having what some could consider as a moment of closure, he's still picking up the pieces from that, and life is still going on. Meanwhile, Mick is hiding out down in Mexico.
With the sweet beard.
What a fantastic entrance by Jon Voight this season. I absolutely love it. Shirtless, bearded, you know, tequila in one hand, or it was mezcal. Mezcal in one hand,
so.
Joint in the other, and he's just flopping out to the ocean, and this like great shot of him just surrounded by water, and then he has this vision of a dolphin that's basically telling him to come out, to swim further out, to maybe even to drown. And upon, you know, getting further out into the water, it turns into this woman, as you mentioned. And I feel like he's never realized, or he's never accepted his own role in the tragedy that is his family before. He's never had to face it so, you know, on the nose as when Ray flat out tells him, you let me down. You know, he's never really had to deal with it. And he's running away right now, but he also now, you know, he's got this woman that died in his mind because of him, because she got close to him. How is he supposed to move on from this?
Well, he's not really taking necessarily responsibility for her either, though, because even as she talks to him in the vision, she says, like, I'm here because of you, and he's like, well, it wasn't me, it was Sully. I don't know. I mean, the whole dolphin thing, I was a little weirded out by that. Anybody else?
Well, it was probably the pot, but
I don't know.
Okay, yeah.
I can't think of any pot that's ever given anyone visions.
Yeah, I mean, we had the LSD give, what's his name, Stashy.
Van Miller.
Stashy.
That's what I called him when I was watching the show.
Love Stashy.
We had that give him visions, but like, okay, this might be a very powerful strain.
Could be laced. Could be laced with something.
well, but he doesn't take responsibility and continues to not take responsibility. And not only doesn't take responsibility, but kind of says to people, well, this is somebody else's fault, or you should be grateful. You know, I did 20 years for you. You owe me this. And it just continues to be who he is.
And he's literally run away from his problems.
Well, do we think that he's going to get any closer to accepting his role in these issues? Do we think that that's where he's headed this season?
Personally, I'm a believer of you can't teach an old dog new tricks.
Yeah.
And some people there's good in everybody, but some people, after a while, they just can't find it, or they don't know what good looks like. He seems like he doesn't understand what being a good man looks like. He seems like he's never seen it. And if you've never seen it or experienced it, you don't know how to emulate it or mimic it and put it onto other people. So if he is capable of, you know, being this person who comes to these revelations and later is like, you know what, I need to get it together. Maybe, but I just don't think so, because I don't think he knows what that looks like. Yeah.
Well, I also think that he's not going to be on his own for long. We have this continued theme of you're not a sailor, you're a captain. You're not a sailor, you're a captain. And I was kind of wrestling with it as we were watching, and obviously I think he considers himself to be a leader. But I think ultimately what that's saying, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that he's someone who he needs people around him. He needs his boys. He needs not only just someone to boss around, but people to support him. He's not a lone wolf. It's maybe why prison was so incredibly hard for him, is because he didn't have anybody, and now he doesn't have anybody again.
I see that.
Yeah, sure. A captain needs, I don't know, shipmates? What would you call it?
He needs sailors.
He needs a crew. He needs homies, you know?
Last time I was a captain of a boat.
A captain needs homies.
He does, you know?
Yeah. Last time I was a captain of a boat, I just had little tiny squirrels or something like that, I think.
I don't know what point you're trying to make.
I really don't want to talk about it right now.
Okay, we'll get back to the squirrel boat.
I just didn't know that it was a crew.
In any case, when Ray wakes up from his dream, he's so disturbed by it that he grabs Abby and he forces himself on her. She's still asleep and he starts having sex with her.
Not the best way to wake up.
No, and hugely disrespectful. I mean, obviously, she didn't stop it. She didn't necessarily she didn't necessarily contest it, but she also, I don't think, was enjoying it very much either. How do we feel?
She didn't look like she was having a good time. Like
Yeah.
I mean, it was very. At one point, I was like, "Is she in pain?" Like to me, it seemed like she was gonna cry out, like because it was so aggressive. It was so hard. But at one point, her face kind of went into this not at peace mode, but kind of like, well, it is what it is.
Yeah, this is business as usual, maybe.
Well, I mean, as we learn later in this therapy session, Ray has been very hypersexual. He's been wanting sex twice a day, like clockwork. And it sounds like to me, he's sublimating his aggression. He's trying, he's trying to have sex. He's trying to do this, what he sees as a positive thing, to just escape from his thoughts just for a second, which maybe means that he's a little further off the reservation than he was last year. The events of last year really have taken a toll on him.
Yeah, well, Kennelia, you made a good point about Abby talked last season about how they have sex, right?
Yeah, she said, "Are you going to ever talk about the way that you F-U-C-K me?"
Right.
And then he was just like whatever.
Okay, sorry.
He seems, well, based on that and just seeing the way that he's had sex in the past, he's just an aggressive guy. Anybody can see that it may have something to do with what happened to him as a child.
Sure.
But at some point, Abby is going to have to make the decision to say, stop doing this. This, like, we can't keep going on like this, because she's going to be the one that suffers the most in this. You can't be a sexual punching bag.
It's
you just
true.
Can't.
It's not a sustainable sex life, and it seems fairly one-sided. She gets enjoyment out of it, but I think when she's telling, the psychiatrist, a lot of women would be grateful to have a husband that wanted to have sex twice a day. It felt like she was avoiding the subject, which is that her husband, in a sexual way, he's kind of using her. He doesn't really see her as a person. He's just trying to get some feelings out, trying to feel something positive for a second, because life is so hard.
Yeah, well, he had the dream, so he wakes up and that's immediately the first thing that he does. And then we also saw last season with the girlfriend, the singer, remember her name?
The girl,
Right.
Ashley.
Blonde.
Yeah, Ashley.
that handcuffed herself to the thing.
Yeah.
They had their brief little encounter there too. It was pretty rough too. So this is kind of a trait, I guess, of Ray Donovan.
Well, yeah. I mean, he seems to act out sexually when he feels threatened or when he feels like the walls are closing in on him. Anna, what do you think?
No, I definitely think that the dream definitely reminded him of something, and so that was a quick, I think, avoidance of feeling for him.
Yeah.
However, I think Abby has a big part in their sexual relationship. I definitely think that this isn't a new behavior from Ray, and and to your point, that relationship with Ashley is kind of how he rolls, and they've been together a lot of years, so she has a part, and they talked about, are we ever going to talk about the way, and he thought that she liked it, and she must have liked it, and they were high school sweethearts, so she has a big hand in their sexual life.
Well, I'm starting to wonder if they've never talked about it, ever. This is just how sex has been between the two of them for their entire relationship, which is, 18 years, now maybe 19 years, now that we're kind of in this, picking up a few months later on. But the fact that he's doing it twice a day, that it's more aggressive than usual, because last year it was kind of sporadic. It would really only happen when they were drunk. So now that it's happening like clockwork, you have to wonder, what is he running from? Or at least that's kind of what's on the forefront for me. In any case, we do have some idea of what he's running from, because Frank isn't doing his job. Frank over at the FBI is supposed to be taking the credit for the shooting of Sully, and we're all supposed to move on and get some closure. But unfortunately, the ballistics report didn't work out. Well, frankly, when Ray just shot him in the arm, I don't think he was thinking about the ballistics report. Also, Avi getting shot kind of screws the pooch on everything. So now we meet this new FBI agent who's next in line to become director, Cochran, played by Hank Azaria, who
Chief Wiggum, man.
Couldn't be happier to have him on the show.
Chief Wiggum.
Mo.
I thought that was what they called him on the show. I'm not certain. Or
Nope, not Chief Wiggum.
They're both police captains of some kind.
I think they're a little different.
They might be different.
But I mean, the casting on this show is uniformly excellent. You know, to have Hank Azaria on the show, to have Brent Spiner on the show is really cool to see him. Been a little bit of a while since I've seen Brent Spiner in anything, but always pleasure to see him. So Cochran, basically, I love Ray's balls here. What?
She has no idea who Brent Spiner is.
I have a little bit of
idea. Well, you have the look on your face. I was like, who the heck is he?
I was actually mocking your luck, is what I was doing.
I was excited. I love seeing Data on TV.
I love Ray's balls here because he walks right into the FBI station knowing that, you know, he's committed all these crimes and that he's in a really dangerous place. Frank tells him that, I'm sorry, I can't do what you want. So Ray marches right into the assistant director of the FBI's office and is like, I'm Ray Donovan, here's what happened. And it's a really risky move.
He's got moxie.
He's got moxie. Yeah. You know, Cochran basically says, look, I need your dad here to corroborate your story. You have 24 hours to get him back into LA. You don't know where he is. You better find him. So Ray immediately goes to the gym looking for Mick. And we get to pick up with all the brothers. We get to pick up with Terry and Bunchy and Daryl for a little bit, and we'll get more into Daryl later on. But Bunchy, it appears that a weight has been lifted. I mean, he's not who he was. He's off the sauce. He's off the drugs. He's wearing a tie and delightfully long jean shorts. He's got a job interview. Things are looking up for Bunch.
Yeah, he's going to work at a bike shop. Of course, he lost his bike last season. Maybe he's trying to.
And he let it go. He let it go. That was like a really heartwarming moment in the finale last year of just like he let those ape hangers go, and God bless him. But I'm so happy for Bunchy after being so tortured last year to be working on himself and moving towards something positive. It also kind of makes me worried that what's around the corner to screw this up. How do you guys feel?
He does not seem in any way more stable to me other than he's sober.
Okay.
He still seems completely emotionally just fragile and frightened, childlike. The only difference is that that Mickey's not in his apartment, so neither is the pornography or the booze, and he's not. He's sober.
Anorexic,
He's a sexually anorexic, which might be why he was so frightened by
creepy.
By creepy.
By Stan.
Creepy Stan.
Creepy Stan.
Was Stan trying to get the draws? Like, what was Stan doing?
I don't know. I don't know. I didn't take it as like a sexual thing. I would say that he was a little odd. I think he just he's someone who's desperate for connection.
I have a prediction about that.
Okay, well, we're going to get into that in a bit. But,
in a while.
Yeah, we're going to get to it further down the road. Just give me a second.
I was just so excited to let you guys know.
I did see a little bit of Bunchy sort of being a little bit lifted from where he was last season with like the thing. Because, you know, when Ray shoots Father Danny, and he doesn't want it to happen before it happens, and then when it happens, like he's almost immediately like,
just a weight has been lifted.
I'm glad you did it. I didn't think I'd want you to do it, but I did. But you did it, and I'm glad that it happened.
But it's also kind of perverse how at peace he is with witnessing a murder. I mean, granted, it's the murder of the guy who molested him years earlier, but it's a really shocking thing to deal with. And one of the things that I've always loved about this show, and that I think it does best, is treating things like violence, like sexual aggression, with a psychological reality, if that makes sense. Like, it's not necessarily letting people get away with things. It's accepting that it takes a toll on everyone. And the kind of life that these people are living is not healthy, emotionally or psychologically.
Yeah, sure. I kind of wonder with the brothers and how they sort of fall into a routine. Like, even like last year when Terry went to go get the guy that the husband of the wife
of Francis,
Francis, when they kind of went to do that and they sort of fell into a routine and sort of waited back until then. They've probably seen violence before.
Well, their entire lives.
I think as brothers before, they've probably gotten into some sticky stuff. Maybe not seen murder, but he might not be that shocked by violent things because they've done this.
Sure.
Before.
Well, let's talk about Terry. He's still hung up on Frances. He's following her back to her house. He's calling and hanging up.
Yeah, he's peeping. How's the peeping, Tommy? How's the peeping?
Yeah, he's a little. Yeah, he's a peeper.
Yeah.
Well, Terry, that was the first connection that Terry had in a long time. So he's gonna get attached. Like when you haven't been with someone that long and they come in your life and they make a real impression, and then like that they're gone. Not even because of you, but because of your family's drama. That's hard to let go. But going to the extent of creeping outside her house with the hoodie on, now that's a little,
It's risky behavior. It's self-destructive.
Yeah, come on, dude. At least wait in the car. Like, don't
Have some respect for yourself.
standing in the
Have
yard.
an exit route.
Right, like
Yeah.
get behind a bush or something.
Yeah,
And
get up
she-
in the
out
tree
there.
like a self-respecting American.
Right.
Come on.
She knows he's out there.
some
Even if
fatigues on
she
at
she
least.
doesn't know for sure, she knows she has that feeling. Like she knows it's got to be him who's calling and hanging up. And like I just want this guy to be happy. Like that's the thing. Like as much as I want Bunchy to be happy, I'm worried that may never come to pass. Terry, he's so hard on himself. He's got all this straight up Catholic guilt, you know, and I just want him to want something for himself and to follow through on it. He's somebody who's got, I think, so much self-hatred. I'm worried that he's trapped in that hole forever. And the events of the end of last season, witnessing that murder and not doing something about it, I don't know that he'll ever forgive himself for it.
Do you think it's that big brother thing? Take the weight of the family on so everybody else can flourish, maybe?
Well, think about that, right? Ray brings it up last season when he's like, why didn't you tell anybody when Father Danny tried it with you? You broke his hand, but you didn't warn us. You didn't warn us, and then we both got molested. Yeah. So I imagine he's got to have a lot of guilt about that.
Sure.
Yeah. And all of them, I think, have guilt over Colleen and, or sorry, not Colleen, Bridget.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and
I
her
was kind of
suicide.
wondering, I don't know if you guys ever talked about this last season, but do we think that Father Danny had something to do with Bridget's suicide? Like,
I think
Oh,
we
yeah.
kind of brought it up, yeah, to the extent of did he do the same thing to her, or was the same thing done to her by Father or by Mickey? I think we kind of threw that on
wow.
the table
Yeah, I
as
didn't
well
think about that.
briefly. But I don't think. Do you remember if we came to any conclusion? It was just a thought. You know?
I don't know if there's.
Yeah.
I mean,
we just.
Well, I mean, for anybody
we don't know the
who,
writers.
for anybody who doesn't remember, the way that it was broken down last year is that Bridget was pregnant and she was on drugs and she didn't know what to do about it. I don't remember specifically if they mentioned who had gotten her pregnant, so it's entirely possible that it could have been someone who should have protected her better, whether it was a member of the clergy, whether it was Mick, which honestly I think that's a bit of a jump, because
Yeah.
I feel like if you impregnate your daughter and then she kills herself, you don't get over it. No amount of denial will push that down, although maybe I'm just underestimating the power of denial.
well, and Mickey perhaps, because he seems to be able to repress a lot of what's going on and just sort of throw it off onto someone else.
True.
Maybe. I certainly hope that's not the case.
Yeah, we just threw it out. It was like
Yeah,
one
no,
of
now
those.
you saying is like,
Okay,
I'm sorry, guys.
we gotta
I'm
move.
sorry.
We gotta move
no,
on.
but I'm like, maybe. Ooh.
Yeah, we got to move on.
Yeah.
So, you know, Ray is interrogating everybody, asking where Mick is, and they refuse to tell him. They're just like, let it be, let it go. You know, he's no longer here. Let's just try to move on with our lives. And frankly, you know, we don't trust you as far as Mick is concerned. We don't. So he calls Daryl, and we see Daryl driving in the desert somewhere. We know he's on his way to see Mick. We know it. And he says to Ray, oh, so now you call me. You call me when you want something. I'm only your brother when you need something from me. That's really screwed up. And I really hope that these two start to connect this year, especially after what happens to Daryl this episode. I think he's starting to get why Ray has such a chip on his shoulder about Mick. And we'll get into that in a bit. So let's talk about this therapy. We brought it up a little bit, but Abby has finally gotten Ray, you know, to work on their marriage. And like, as terrible of a person ultimately as Ray is, you got to give him credit for trying as far as being a father is concerned. Maybe not as much as where being a husband is concerned. He cares about his kids. He's involved in their lives. He isn't the greatest example, but he is an active parent. He's there. or at least he's there most of the time. Well, he's there when stuff isn't going on, but he cares.
Yeah.
So, you know, Abby was asking him last year for emotional honesty, and it sounds like she's shared a lot more with their therapist than he has. And I think the big thing that is going to come back later this season is that she told the therapist about Ray's abuse.
Yeah, which she regrets.
She regrets, and I regret it for her, because when Ray finds out that she's telling people, I mean, a therapist is one thing, but still, telling anyone about this thing that he's denied and he hasn't brought up for their entire relationship.
Yeah, no one knows this. None of his brothers didn't know, no one knew. In fact, for the most part, he was more concerned with the priest being honest to Bunchy than about himself until, you know, he says, "I loved you, Ray," and then he shoots him in the face or whatever. But
yeah,
it's certainly going to come back, because this is the deepest, probably darkest secret that
Ray has. Well, I mean, so Abby is very forthcoming with this therapist, and then he compliments her on her honesty, and then he turns to Ray, and Ray is just a rock, and he's not letting anything out. Do we think that he's going to ever cooperate in a therapist scenario?
I think he's cooperating as much as he can for who he is. He, you know, and again, going back to the dream, he buries his own feelings, and I don't know that he knows. And by the way, that was a survival mechanism for him as a child. You know, something horrible happened to him, something traumatizing. And by a priest, by somebody who's supposed to protect him.
Yeah.
And then let down by his father, who's also supposed to protect him.
Yeah. And he
Eat him
doesn't
after telling
have
him.
a mother, because she's either already dead or is sick and dying at the time. So he has nobody in the world. He's nobody. So as a survival mechanism, it's all he's known to do is bury his feelings and just push that down, down, down. So that worked for him as a child. So to suddenly sit in a therapist's office and like, well, let's bring all that shit up now. You know, that seems really counterintuitive to him.
Seriously.
Suddenly.
Yeah.
And maybe for him, like, just the fact of being there is like the biggest step that he can probably take right now.
Well, exactly. And so I think he's really honestly doing his best.
It's a big step. But in any case, the moment his phone buzzes, even for an instant, he's up and he's out the door.
Yeah. I got the feeling that was a regular occurrence. They didn't seem surprised that he left.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in any case, he leaves and he gets a call from Deontay making a triumphant return to Ray Donovan with
In true form.
In wonderful Deontay form, sleeping with this American Idol contestant who probably was not 18.
Probably not.
If they left it open to question, she's probably
How old
not.
are you? What does that matter?
What does it matter?
It matters a lot if you won't answer.
Yeah. So Ray goes racing over there, and Deontay's wife has a gun, and she shoots this girl in the arm. Ray breaks in a little too late to stop it, and then I love this moment where he says to Deontay's wife, he's like, you know, yeah, he's a piece of shit. Shoot him. You should shoot him.
Yeah,
shoot him. And she can't bring herself to do it, and he takes the gun. And I love the way that he solves this problem. He's like, hey, listen to me. You know, do you want to be the girl who banged Deontay Brown and lost American Idol, or do you want to have a shot at winning this thing? He gets her out of the car, he takes her to a park, and he fires 2 shots over her right shoulder. And he's like, okay, now you can call an ambulance. And Lena just pops up out of nowhere. Yeah. I love Lena, and I hope we get more of her backstory this year. Like every little glimpse behind the curtain just made me want more last year, because she's so effective and she's so loyal, and it seems like she doesn't really have much of a life of her own, and there's so much good in her. I'm just so curious about what else is going on there.
It's kind of like the Robin to his Batman.
Yeah. But she's building a life with Avi.
I know, and Avi's Ema.
Yeah.
I love
so great.
Avi, like, trying to hold back tears as he's watching American Idol was so funny.
So it's a heartfelt song, man. If you don't cry about that over that song.
Not just holding back tears, but shushing his mother.
Listening to the words.
Yeah. Oh, beautiful.
You know what I noticed about, like, Ray, even though he is getting the American Idol girl out of the situation, I think even like we saw with the transvestite from last season, in some ways it still feels like he cares a little bit about these people. Like when he says that you don't want to be the girl that
Well, not just people, women. He has a savior complex with women. I mean,
well, he has that with his brothers too. But I sort of noticed that in some way or another, and maybe like this is like Ray's psychology, but he's sort of always sticking up for the person that can't necessarily stick up for themselves in some way, like the way he does with his brothers. You know, even not letting them know that he was molested too, and even with the transvestite, even though he roughed her up, I guess that. You know, he's still giving the money for the surgeries.
Yeah.
Like, I see that there is some sort of moral code with him, even though he does these questionable things.
I get it, but I think specifically it is with women because those are the major failings in his life.
Sure.
He failed to prevent his sister's suicide. He failed to prevent his mom's death. He failed to prevent Colleen's death. And I think that he holds a lot of guilt towards women. You remember, you know, when he got drunk last year and he, you know, the Marilyn Monroe painting said, you know, F me, Ray, save me, Ray. And Ashley did the same thing and it really screwed him up. I think that ultimately he's never going to know how to handle women in a healthy fashion.
Yeah. Well, he's also got he's got his sister's tattoo. I don't think we saw that before. That he's got his sister Bridget's name on his.
He's got Bridget and he's got Mary. I think he's had them both since the pilot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't see the tattoo last season.
Well, in any case, before we move on, I just want to talk really quickly about iTunes. Folks, thank you so much for downloading this podcast, listening to it, streaming it. You're all the best. We're here at AfterBuzz TV. If you didn't know, we put out between 60 and 70 hours of free content a week. It's a crazy amount of content that you can stream or download or do whatever you want with. I don't care. It's true. You could use it as a coaster if that could somehow happen. If you could somehow use an audio file as a coaster, I'd be okay with it. But the great thing about it...
It's not a solid object, man.
The great thing about it is that it's all for the low, low price of free. And I think we cover just about every show on the air. And if there's a show that we don't cover, you should write us at info@AfterBuzzTV.com. We'll see what we can do about it. What could you do to support us? You may be asking. I'd hope you'd be asking because you're a true fan. You go to iTunes. You rate, review the shows that you watch or that you listen to. It's so easy. It just takes a second and it doesn't cost a dime. And it helps us in a big, big way. The more reviews and the more ratings that we have, 5 stars preferably, the easier it is for people to find our shows and to grow our audience, but also it helps us find sponsors. And those are the people that keep our lights on and our doors open. We appreciate your support, and also you'll get a fun shout out right here on the show. So thank you so much. And we're going to keep talking about Ray Donovan. I get into starting right now. Let's check in with Ezra. He gets an unexpected visitor in the form of Hank Azaria's Agent Cochran.
Chief Wiggum.
Yes, not Chief Wiggum.
Sorry, that's what I think of him.
And, you know, he's definitely disturbed by his presence. Ezra finally, I think the marbles are starting to get right back into place where they're supposed to be following his surgery last year, but he's still got a lot of concerns. He still thinks they're on the edge of going to jail. He still wants to get Ruth's Cancer Center up and running. He's $50 million short. That's probably going to play a big role this year in what Ray has to do for him. And, you know, Cochran's trying to get him to talk about Ray. I think this is the first time he's ever mentioned that Ray is also a client. I don't know if that's just a tactic or if that's the truth, but it's definitely the first time it's been mentioned on the show. Just pointing that out. But in any case, you know, he's still going to keep putting the pressure on Ray to keep them secure, to keep them afloat. But he's not really doing anything about it. Nothing. Not at all.
Ray's not doing anything to get the 50 million.
Ezra's not doing anything. Ezra's just kind of like, Ray, you need to save me. Ray, you need to do this. Ray, you need to protect Ruth. Ray. And he's not really doing anything actively.
Well, he's sick. So
he was sick.
Yeah, is he better now, maybe?
Can you get better? Can you just get better? What did he have? Alzheimer's? It seems like
he had a brain tumor and they shrunk it.
Yeah.
I still look at Ezra as the Ezra before, especially since he was going through so many. Then he was like outside on the bench with the dog, some stranger's dog, puppy.
Yeah.
I mean, can you bounce back from that and just be immediately okay and back up and running? I mean, he didn't seem like he was all there today. So to me, when I saw him today, I was like, oh, it's just Ezra, like that old man, like grandpa.
To me, he felt like way more alert and way more present than he was last year. I mean, granted, time will tell, and we'll see if his illness starts to come back. Yeah. We also don't know what happened to Sean Walker's baby. Just bringing that up.
Yeah, we don't know. Yeah. I think Ezra does have moments of like sort of more clarity and less clarity, and maybe this was one where he was kind of a little more.
He was a little more lucid today.
A little more lucid, but I kind of think that we will see him be kind of the Ezra that we know, sort of like aloof.
Here's where I'm going to give Ezra a break, being Ray, do this, do that. That has been Ray's job, is to just answer to Ezra. And the only reason why that has been an issue for Ray is because of Abby inviting Mickey back into his life and making his life completely complicated, not just for him and his personal family life, but also for Ezra.
Yeah.
So
it's a fair point.
Sure.
Yeah, I gotta give Ezra credit on that one. But it's my personal hope that he gets a little more active this year, now that he may be better. That's just a personal hope, and I love seeing Elliot Gould, so it was always great to see him back. Obviously, Cochran continuing to put the pressure on Ray to get Mick back into town. He still has no idea where he is. He's tracking Daryl's cell phone via Avi and trying to get a beat on him. Meanwhile, Connor gets into a fight at school. He once again keeps trying to tout his celebrity connections in an effort to gain popularity. And once again, it gets him in trouble because this douchebag kid is like, oh, you don't know these people, slaps the phone out of his hand, and Connor responds by pushing him down a flight of stairs.
I would not turn my back on Connor.
No.
You insult him, you might get like a cleat to the back of the head.
It was a football tee.
Football tee.
Yeah.
And now you turn your back walking down some stairs, you might get your collarbone broken off.
Yeah.
Connor's a thug. I mean, that's you watch thug rapping on YouTube 24/7. You turn into a thug. Now he's this. Next thing he's gonna be like wearing a Tupac bandana around his head. Connor is out of control.
Well, his father's a thug.
It's true.
Yeah.
What example does he have of masculinity?
But his father is a thug in a not completely embarrassing way.
Connor is Tupac Donovan. Like, he literally.
I think like learning the tough life on the streets and on YouTube is exactly the same thing. So this is where he's learned it.
Yeah, life on the hard streets of Calabasas.
Yeah.
Can I just say, that just as a side note, I grew up in LA, and all of the boys in Calabasas are like that. Like, they think they're
Malibu's Most
super
Wanted.
hardcore. They really are.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, I mean, you look at the examples of masculinity that he has. He has his father and his grandfather. You know, I still can't scrub out from my brain Mickey's "a mouth is a mouth" speech. Yeah.
Right.
This is some solid grandparenting.
Terrible grandparenting. But he has those two, and then he has the kind of like weak husks of men that are Terry and Bunchy. So, you know, who is he going to be like? He's not going to emulate those figures. He's going to emulate his father. He's going to emulate Mickey. And that means aggression. And I'm wondering, you know, how are we ever going to get him down a proper path? Is that even possible?
I know Ray kind of tried a little bit. He did say we're going to go over and apologize, and then of course he had a
He had to bail.
with. Yeah, he had to go bail on him. So it seems like he's going to try to, but
Yeah. Again, Ray being an active father when he can.
Yeah.
You know, when life allows. So, you know, hopefully he's able to steer him back onto a path. Also, want to point out he's still talking to Tommy Wheeler.
Yeah.
Disappointing.
Why?
Well, just because like Tommy's a really screwed up dude, and they're having this conversation. I know that that Ray and Abby trust him to take care of himself in this regard, but they also don't know everything that's being said. They don't know, you know, what kind of advice Tommy is giving Connor about life.
Yeah.
But Tommy is probably taking a more active parenting role in Connor's life than either of them, because you know what happened. I noticed. You know, Connor broke some kid's collarbone.
Yeah.
And the thing that Abby was most upset about, she was like, Connor, we're going to get sued.
yeah, that's true.
You know?
Yeah, so it's not even about the real lesson of like, this is what you did to another person. It's more like, this is going to come back on us.
Right. Like, you know, you took time out of our day. And we're gonna get and she said something like I don't have anything better to do.
Yeah.
Like this is, I mean, she was really like hysterical about how this affected her.
Yeah, now I'm gonna have to watch you for 5 days.
I'm gonna have to watch you for 5 days.
That's a very fair point.
Yeah, that's a good
It's an
point,
incredibly selfish position versus actively trying to say, what's going on, pal?
Yeah.
Why are you acting out in this way?
Right, and don't you understand how you seriously hurt another person and how this is going to affect them? And like, let's really get to the bottom of this. No, it was like, you know, Ray showed up but could not follow through with the parenting.
Yeah.
And by
At least
the way,
he gave him a hug.
At least he gave him a hug.
That's a solid hug, too.
But this,
That's a good man hug. Yeah.
This is like aggressive behavior that he's modeling after him, and then Abby's just like this hysterical woman that is just so self-involved. It's bad parenting on both ends.
True. All right, I want to talk about Bridget, who is not over Marvin Gaye Washington in the least bit. She wants to think that she is, but she is not.
She can't escape him. He's got 8 million hits on
He's
YouTube.
a thug, guys. Like, you know girls
Is he
like
really a thug?
thugs.
Is he really a thug? He seems more of like he seems fairly sweet.
He's an internet
Except for
thug.
when he's saying, "Pipe me, bitch."
Yeah. That
Well,
was
no, yeah.
whoa.
That maybe my least favorite moment with that character from last
Ever.
season. But in that situation, he was sort of taking out the whole aggression about his mom dying, so maybe. But it wasn't
true.
Wasn't savory behavior. From
No,
him.
and it seems like, I mean, granted, it may just be because Ray stuck a gun in his mouth, but it seemed like he learned his lesson from that. It doesn't, I still think we need to see way more positive examples of behavior before I feel like, as a viewer, I can trust him again.
Right.
Like, you know, Bridget doesn't deserve that kind of treatment, but she's not over him yet. And then we have this whole debacle with this ounce of pot, which, you know, she's not into weed. You know, Marvin brought it over last season and was smoking out of that gun pipe, that magnificent revolver pipe, and she didn't have any. So it doesn't make sense for her to be carrying an ounce of pot. That's crazy. And Ray immediately sees through it. He's like, this is obviously Cochran putting pressure on me, basically saying, if you don't bring your father back to this city, I will screw with your entire family and I will burn them to the ground.
Yeah, and we never saw an ounce of pot. They just pulled
They
up to the
said
car
that there was.
Well,
and immediately asked about her backpack. Mm-hmm. Please don't do this. I mean,
Yeah.
Well, and we know, to be that young and harassed by the cops, I mean, that is
traumatizing.
it's completely traumatizing. She's scared and she's crying. And what does Ray do? He says, let's keep this between us. Let's have a secret between us. This is adult behavior. This is, let's draw a circle between us. Let's leave your mother out of it. And that's not fair to do to a kid either. And then he's not even there. Again, he calls her, or he texts her, can't be there. Can you hold down the fort? You know, I mean, this is just not fair to do to a child, to not even be there to like put your arms around her and say, I'm so sorry that happened.
Yeah.
You know, this is just awful. Tell me how you feel.
I feel like this is one of the central conflicts of the show, and that's really going to build over the course of the series, is will the next generation turn out like the previous generation of Donovans? Is there any way to save this next generation and to give them lives that are more fulfilling than the ones that they have? And I feel like, Ray is doing his best in this regard, but also Abby needs to step up in a big way. You know, the way that she handled the Connor situation, while I understand her anger and her outrage about being exposed potentially to a lawsuit, she needs to work on her emotional intelligence, I think. And Ray obviously needs to as well. All right, we got to move on. So we talked a little bit about Bunchy and Stan.
Creepy Stan.
Creepy Stan. Let's talk about his job interview at this bike shop. He's like, I love bikes. I can fix anything on two wheels. You give me a bike, I can fix it. And I love this moment where the employer's like, there's a blank on your application. Who was your previous? Oh wow, that's really impressive. What did you do there?
I delivered it. Yeah.
And they share a laugh, so like that to me says maybe this guy's like, all right, you're good people. Yeah, I hope he gets the job. He needs some structure in his life.
I think Bunchy's. Well, I said this before, but I think Bunchy's like one of my favorite characters. I just how like lovably sweet he is and innocent for the most part.
Yeah. And
He's harmless.
We didn't really get any mention or see hide nor hair of his $1.4 million. This episode, he doesn't need a job. I think it's good though that he's trying to get it. You know, he needs something to do.
Ray's got his money. Ray did hold his money after he got it back from the house, or after he got the house back. He wouldn't let him have it, so Ray still probably has his money.
Okay, well, I'm sure it's going to come back into play. An amount of money that size can't stay away forever. All right, so let's talk about Daryl. He comes down to Mexico to be with his dad, and Daryl has a unique experience with Mick, unlike the other three brothers. He wasn't exposed to the negative side of things back in Boston. He didn't see the drug dealing. He didn't see the bank robbing. He didn't get any of that. Mick is the fun parent compared to his stepdad, who's like a rich jerk. Like the $2,000 bottle back in '95 when he bought it. You got to sip it, Daryl.
Sip it, Daryl.
Oh, I loved when they brought that back towards the end of season one. In any case, Mick says, "Look, I booked a fight for you. It's going to be great. You're going to knock him out just like in your other fight." And he reads the poster, the bill for it, and he's billed as El Negro.
El Negro.
And he's like, "What the hell?" And Mick doesn't care. Mick doesn't care one bit. He's like, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, he does.
Oh, go ahead.
Okay.
Well, there was in the season 1 recap, there was a sort of callback to Ray saying to Daryl, "You're Donovan, you're really Donovan. Get used to Mick disappointing you." And so as soon as he gets down to Mexico, it was like, I need $400 right away.
Yeah. He takes all the money out of his wallet
For his lady.
Yeah, and then he completely
For his hooker.
Yeah.
I wasn't gonna name names.
Yeah, it's his first real dose of disappointment at the hands of Mick. The second huge dose that he got completely used. Mick set him up.
With La Fuerza.
La Fuerza, who's gigantic.
Yeah.
He's like two
mountain.
Daryls.
It's like Andre the Giant.
Oh yeah, he
And-
just looks like a pit bull.
And Daryl, at first we're so concerned for him, and then he gets one good punch in. We're like, oh man, is Daryl about to turn this
maybe.
around? No, not a chance in hell.
He's getting beat.
Daryl gets the crap beat out of him, and he then, as he's kind of like his focus is blurring, he can barely see. He sees that Mick bet against him, and that was the plan all along. He didn't tell him anything. He set him up to take the fall so that he could make a quick buck.
Yeah, but his heart was with him, Matt. That was the important part.
BS. BS, a mountain of BS.
Right, or he wouldn't have offered him that beer at lunch.
Yeah, that was very
exactly.
considerate.
Oh, well, now that's even more nefarious because he was just trying to ruin his focus. He didn't care about him winning at all. It should have been obvious from that moment. That's a great pull, Anna.
Mickey, Daryl, yes, is the new son, and now he's getting used to it. But as an adult, when a person is causing turmoil in everybody's life, you have to look at that, and you have to kind of keep that in the back of your mind. To me, it seems like every time Daryl is around Mickey, until Mickey does something right then in that moment, Daryl forgets that anybody thinks that Mickey's a dirtbag. It's like he's like, oh, shoot, you're a dirtbag? It's like it's his first time finding out that Mickey's this guy.
Well,
So at some point, Daryl...
I can't believe this.
I'm hoping now, that he's going to at least remember that he's this person. Because up until this point, it was like, oh, shoot, you're a bad dude? Like, come on, Daryl.
I don't think he's going to forget this.
He better not.
Yeah, well, go ahead.
No, I don't want to cut. Go ahead.
Okay, well, I was going to say that's why he calls Ray, because he's like,
He's
wait a
over it.
second. Well, let me take half that money first. and
Well,
then,
yeah, because he earned it. He
Yeah,
earned
he
that
did.
money.
Yeah, I got that beating, man. I earned half this cash.
I think Daryl's position up until this point has been, this is who Mickey was, that's not who he is anymore. He did his time, let's forgive him and move forward.
Right. Okay, so Ray gets down there and he confronts Mick, and Mick refuses to leave. He's pissed drunk. And we get this great moment of like, okay. So he changes the song on the jukebox. He walks out, he opens the trunk, and we're like, where's the baseball bat? Where is it? As he strips off the jacket
It was coming
and the
out.
shirt. And he's just bare-chested. He grabs that baseball bat and he marches in ready for war. Loved it. Loved it. Okay, so Isaac, you said you had a bit of news?
I do have a bit of news.
All right.
AfterBuzz TV News.
Well, it turns out the Emmy nominations are out.
Oh, yes, that's true.
Yes, and our very own Mickey Donovan, the
Mr. Jon
dirtbag,
Voight.
Mr. Jon Voight, has been nominated for Best Supporting Actor in a Drama.
Oh, fantastic. Well, he won the Golden Globe, obviously, earlier this year, and hopefully he makes it a second win this time around for his performance in the first
I think
season.
those board shorts are going to do it, man.
All right, man. Very excited about that. Okay, it is time for predictions.
And now, your AfterBuzz TV predictions.
All right, now Anna, I want to start with you because you mentioned you had a prediction earlier, and I want to hear it.
Well, this is a strictly Stan prediction.
Okay, let's do it.
Let's do it.
But I think that he's been sent, I think this is a Father Danny somehow related thing, and he's been sort of sent in to infiltrate the group
What?
Ooh.
to see, because there's some sort of like suspicions, oh, you were last seen with this guy.
You think that he's a detective and he's investigating
For
the
I
the
murder?
don't-
Catholic Church.
I don't think he's a detective. I think he's with the Catholic Church. So I think it's going to be an unofficial investigation.
Do the Catholic Church have PIs?
Yes.
What?
They have people everywhere.
You never know.
Snap.
I
Yeah.
don't know. He did give a lot of looks towards Bunchy. There was a lot of eyeballing him.
He had
although
all eyes on Bunchy.
We don't know what the reason for this eyeballing was. He seemed to want a cup of coffee or something from Bunchy. I'm not sure what
That's
he
a good
wanted.
point, though.
But yeah,
Yeah.
but that's my prediction. On
I
it.
like that. I like that theory because Bunchy is definitely the weak link in terms of like who's going to keep their mouth shut about this murder, especially when he's at that meeting and he doesn't say, well, I didn't so much move on as I buried my problems. Yeah. Okay, I like that theory. What else do we have? I mean, we have this Cochran thing. Do we think that this FBI investigation is going to go away anytime soon? Do we think that Mick is going to get flipped and turn on Ray? Or is Van Miller's investigation going to get reopened?
Well, this is Mick, and he's a criminal. So I don't think the idea that, oh, I'll bring Mick back and now you'll be off my back. Yay, I'm Ray Donovan, I'm free. No, Mick is going to flip it somehow to benefit him. It's not just going to be turn my dad in and everything's forgotten. So Mick, I think he'll come up with a plan, and it'll be a plan that is basically to benefit himself.
Okay.
Yeah, he is a master manipulator. He got himself out of that whole getting shot thing and, you know, talked his way out of that. That was pretty impressive.
My prediction, I think, is going to be largely about who returning faces. I think Marvin is definitely coming back.
Oh, yeah.
I'd like to think that Ashley's coming back too, although maybe we've kind of dealt with that situation. I'd love to see more Stu Feldman, just because I think that character's hilarious. I don't know what else.
I just see, especially with the way Ray kind of came back into form with grabbing his baseball bat, you know, did back to his old tricks there. I think we're seeing him back in form. I think this therapy stuff is not going to last long.
I'd like to think that he makes some kind of breakthrough by season's end.
I also want to predict in an affair. Abby has an affair.
Okay, I like this theory. Yeah.
I want to know what they
All right. Issac Johnson, where can the people find you online?
People can find me on Twitter at Issac Johnson, Instagram the Issac Johnson, and please check out my album on iTunes called All the Things We Are.
All right, and Anna Koppel.
You can follow me at Koppel for Mayor, KOPPELFORMAYOR.
All right, and Kennelia Stradwick.
You can find me at Kennelia on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook.
Okay, and you can find me on Twitter at Matt Lieberman. That's MattLieberman. You can also find all my videos for SourceFed and SourceFed Nerd on YouTube. I want to thank you all so much for joining us. We will be back next week. Have a good night.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.
Thank you for watching AfterBuzz TV on YouTube. For more of your favorite after shows and interviews, subscribe to our channel here, and be sure to share your opinion on the episode in the comment section below here. We'd love to see what you guys are buzzing about. Thanks again. Buzz you later.